Evening, good morning, good afternoon, whenever you are watching this episode of After Sunday. After Sunday, the Lord Still Speaks, brought to you by the Social Maximus platform. I am excited to be here. I am your host, the one and only Donald Lee with D. Lee Ministries, a ministry of hope, a ministry of power, a ministry of truth. And I got a special guest today. Oh my God. Listen, every guest is special, but today it is special because for my first three episodes, I had some phenomenal women. I mean, they were builders, they were entrepreneurs, they were just rock stars, but I got some testosterone on the show with me tonight. So I feel good. So I might be a little extra tonight, if you know what I mean. This is my brother that I met a few short months ago, Mr. Robert David. But before I pass it over to him, and before we talk, I tell you what tonight's topic is, I want to give a shout out to my classmate who I've known for 35 plus years, which is one of Mr. David's employees. Her name is Shakiva Frazier, who made this kingdom connection. Yes. So me and Shakiva was messaging one night, and we were going back, reminiscing, talking about stuff that happened in kindergarten, talking about stuff that happened in third grade, and she was talking fast and I was typing. So we finally got on the phone and we talked, and she says, Donald, I got to get you connected with my boss. And I'm going to segue into the show. Before she got me connected, she says, reach out to him. This is his Facebook information. And you know how typically you reach out to somebody, and Robert, I'm gonna put you on a hot spot here. Sometimes people make you jump through 50 million hoops to get to them. You gotta schedule some time on their calendar. You gotta call their virtual assistant. This brother hit me back that night and says, I'm free now. Can you talk? I was like, wow. So we talked. That was the first part of December of last year. I went to his office at the end of December because I was in Danville on business, and the rest is history. But I'm going to introduce to the world Mr. Robert David. He's doing so much in the kingdom. He's doing so much in the city of Danville, Virginia, which is my hometown, by the way. I'm going to let him introduce himself in his own right, and then we're going to get into tonight's topic. Tonight's topic is we're going to touch on the kingdom versus religion. I hope you guys are ready. I hope you're ready. Mr. David, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Well, I'm Robert David, man. I grew up the only child, so I had those only child's tendencies. Definitely God had to deliver me from that. I want things a certain way. Come from a small town in North Carolina, essentially raised with, in that central family unit, man, aunts and uncles, and my people were all good people, helped everyone, and that rubbed off on me. And so all my life, I've been empowering people. One thing I know is that your purpose can be perverted when the information in your soul is corrupt. We might have to save that for later. But what I mean by that is, if you get the wrong information, you could take your gift and do some wild stuff. And my gift has always been to empower people. It's just I use it in different ways. But eventually, as I got older, I found my calling was to help young people, help any of those marginalized individuals who are struggling. And, that's just been my path, working with whether it's outreach ministry or whatever the case may be. At 25 years old, I went to California and I started working with gang members because I saw they were being used by older people, these young guys, 17, 18. And I made a decision, I got to help them. But my whole life, I've been one of those people who I just want to see you do better, because I understand that God operates through people. The blessings and the prosperity and the access that we're looking for is not going to fall out of the sky. It comes through relationships. And I value that. And I understand relationships bring healing. They bring miraculous incidences, and God's power comes through the connecting of people. So that's who I am. I can tell you a whole bunch of stuff of what I do. I got some degrees. I've been Natural Mission Universe and all that, but none of that means anything because that's not who I am. That's just something I did till I found what I was supposed to do.
you touched on something. You talked on access. And me and you talk about this all the time.
Yes, sir.
When we talk. But why is access so important, Mr. David, to people who think that it's all about I got this or I got that? But why is access so important?
Because access is a biblical principle. We're called to be stewards. And stewardship is not ownership. Stewardship is just giving you access to something for a particular time, and you have the ability to release it. Now, if you have access, this is what I always say. If I'm in a business deal with a business person from China, and he sends his private jet over here to pick me up, from the moment I step on that jet, that's my jet. I have access to the jet. They have to treat me like it's mine. I get to drink and eat everything like it's mine. I get to fly like it's mine, but I don't have any of the maintenance, any of the fuel, or any of the problems. That's how the kingdom of God works. That's why.
So are you saying access is better than ownership?
Access is better than ownership, and if you have access, you don't need money. Money comes through access.
I love it. You know what came to mind when you said that and you gave that jet illustration? Joseph. Joseph had access over all of Egypt. He wasn't Pharaoh.
Right.
God designed him to be Joseph. I'm trying to help somebody. And he was the best Joseph that he could be. He was the number 2 guy, Robert. He was the number 2 man in Egypt. But Pharaoh said, because of your wisdom, because of your understanding, I'm gonna put you over all of this. Let's go a little bit further, because somebody listening, they think that they gotta have it all together in order to get access. I need you to help them with that right there.
Access has nothing to do with where you are. Access has to do with what you have to do. Your purpose determines your access. Depending on what your assignment is on this earth is depending on the access that's going to be opened up to you. Now, you can create your own access, but then with your own access, you're going to create some weights that you're going to have to remove.
Uh-oh.
Now, what happens when you create your own access, that's called networking in a negative way and manipulation. That means looking for the favor of man. And then once you get the favor of man, you owe somebody a favor. But see, and so now you got to bear that weight. And God said, look, you set aside those weights that so easily beset you. I didn't put that on you. That's something you created. But with access, there is no burden. With access, there's only fulfillment of God's word if you allow God to do it. Now, the thing about that is that in order to, especially as you get older, in order to step into that access or that stewardship that God has for you, that you're going to have to ask yourself some hard questions. Is the direction I'm going in my life the direction God gave me, or is the direction I gave myself?
That's
a hard question.
That's a hard question. I think a lot of times we don't want to ask that question because we don't really want the answer to that question, Brother Robert. Would you agree?
I would agree. Because if you answer that question, then you might have to say that you've been living a lie.
Wow.
You might have to say that. You might have to say that the job you have is not a God-given job. It may have given you money. It may have given you a nice home. It may give you a lot of different things, but did it give you peace and did it give you purpose? You might be operating in the 30, but will you ever operate in the 100? Because you operating on what you created. And don't get me wrong, people of God takes care of his people. But there's a perfect will, as we know. And
I want to touch on something else before I go into your books. Oh my God, this is so good. Let's touch on briefly, because I know how you roll, the kingdom versus religion. Why are people still caught up in religion versus just saying, you know what, we are living in a kingdom society and I'm going to operate in the kingdom?
Because religion gives status. There is no status in the kingdom because God is almighty. It's the same thing if you look at it when the disciples came to Jesus, they began to buck for hierarchy. When I started religion, then I can set my own status. The kingdom, everybody's even. Everybody's even at the foot of the king. So if I start bringing in religion, then now I can look at you and expect you to be my servant when you really should be my brother.
Now listen, you are listening to After Sunday. The Lord still speaks. By the time you're watching this show, you didn't had your Sunday service. You probably didn't had your midweek service. And I'm not trying to ruffle any feathers tonight, but I want to bring you some hope, some inspiration, some empowerment, and some truth. Brother, go in just a little bit more, because I feel it when the kingdom, when you're operating in your kingdom purpose, things just flow naturally. Would you agree?
Well, they have to, because what kind of God would God be to give you a job and not the equipment to get to perform it?
That's good.
So it has to flow. It's just like when he sent the disciples out the first time, said, look, don't take anything. So when we walk in our kingdom, everything we need is along the way. That's why we can't necessarily see how we're going to get there. But if you begin to move forward, because God honors decision. And so as you begin to move forward, you pick up everything that you need. One thing leads to another, because it's about access, not ownership. We can't carry on the journey that God has for us. We can't carry everything he needs for us to have, but we can pick up everything he needs. But that don't mean we're supposed to keep it.
So what you're saying is, if I'm called to a certain sector,
right,
and I don't have everything I need at this present time,
right,
if I'm truly called to it, it's God's responsibility to grant me access for everything I need.
That's right. And that's why that's why it shouldn't be any worry. I mean, we human, we're gonna feel some stuff, but your feelings come and go based on the day. But worrying about what if God has called you to do that for real and you know it, then you're gonna pick up everything that you need. I'm gonna tell you the story how I got to this point. I quit my job because God told me to move, right? He told me to leave this job. And I did like most of us, another job. I was working in probation. In about September, he told me, said, I need you to leave this job. And I said, God, who gonna pay these bills? And so I stayed. So around December, I began almost going a nervous breakdown, and I had to take a whole month off to clear my head, because I was really headed at that point, because this is what was happening. My purpose was bigger than my situation. My spirit was warring against my soul. I was thinking one way, but my spirit was pulling me another way, because God had already called. He had said it. He'd already set it out. Look, okay, it's time. I don't care what you put on yourself. I got a job for you to do. And so I was about to have a nervous breakdown because I was trying to outthink my spirit, and you can't do that. So I took a month off, got with God, talked, to myself, and I put my resignation in before I ever had a job. And you know what I said? I said, God, I believe that you anointed me with enough gifts and abilities to hustle. But here's what I did too. I told my wife, I said, we cutting some of the streaming. We going to Cricket Telephone, and we gonna cut the cable back. We gonna hunker down, because I believe God. Access, make a long story short, I came into a city for one thing, and I was doing something else. I was going to start my own business as a mentor. And a young lady said, don't you work with gangs? I said, yeah. She called the city manager, HR. They said the job was closed. But she gave me a phone number. And I called that number. And 3 hours later, they called me back. And they said, Mr. David, we don't do business in the city, but send me your resume. The rest is history. I'm not telling you something I heard. I lived it. That was 5 years ago. I put the resume in on knowing that my purpose was greater than my situation, because I was going to hurt anyway, brother. I was hurting in that situation because I wasn't where I needed to be. I wasn't happy. I didn't have peace. So I had to choose how I was going to hurt. And many times, men and women of God, we're afraid to make that choice. One thing I always say is we are more like God when we make decisions, because God is not an indecisive. You know how in the old church say you want to be holy? You want to be holy, make a decision. Hey, God,
Make
I want
us.
to make a decision. Because if God is not an indecisive God, when we make a decision, we being godly.
That's good. That's good. I love your story, and I'm grateful that you shared that because I believe there's someone watching this tonight, or whenever they're watching today's show, they need to make a decision. And we're not telling you to just jump
Mm-mm.
foolishness,
No,
foolishness, foolishness. We're telling you to hear the voice of God, get with people who know God,
that's right.
because one thing about God, he confirms his word through people, right?
That's right.
we of men of God, somebody probably told you a long time ago, you're called to do this multiple times, right?
Yeah.
And you kept hearing it over and over again. And now you're walking in the manifestation of that very thing because of a word, correct?
Let me. And what's crazy about that? It's not crazy how God did it, because God knows how I am, and that's another thing. He'll deal with you how you are. 4 years before that, before I got this job, 3 or 4 years, I was at Carowinds with my family. My daughters was on the ride. I was standing out there, and this unassuming guy walks up to me and makes a joke, says, "You know, you look like someone on TV." Never seen this guy, never knew him, nothing, anything like that. It was an older white guy, had on sandals, looked like he was just relaxing. He walks up to me, and and his wife said, "Oh, here we go." So you may be just like me, brother. You're used to people kind of walking up and prophesying to you, so you're very discerning on those things. This man began to tell me about what's happening now in
Wow.
Carowinds. In Carowinds, while I'm with my family, he began to tell me exactly what was going to transpire. As far as, I never talked to him, he said, and the first things he says to me, if I recall correctly, he said, I know you're tired. He said, and I know you think that you're working with the youth is in vain, but God told me to tell you.
Wow. Wow.
In
Wow.
Carowinds.
I love it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your books, brother.
Okay.
You're a published author. I see one of them, Gangs versus Kingdom.
Right.
The second one is Stand Up and Breathe.
Right.
And then the third one was it Bigger?
Bigger than Black and Blue.
Bigger Than Black and Blue. So
right.
How can people find your books and find you?
On Amazon. They're all on Amazon. Just type in the name, Robert David, name of the title, and they can all be found on Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah.
We will make sure the links will be there because I believe this is some great information. And man, I'm loving the conversation. Look, we couldn't get past that access to really get into what I wanted to get into, but I love that analogy that when somebody needs you for something, they're going to send their stuff for you.
Right.
They're going to send their stuff for you.
They send their stuff.
Their stuff. And it's going to be taken care of.
Right.
And what I hear, and I want to share this for somebody that's watching tonight, you are in a season where God is getting ready to send some people to help you build what you're called to build.
Yes, sir.
So often, Brother Robert, we get weary because we're trying to do it in our own strength.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, in this season, I need you to trust me and only me. Don't trust your bank account.
That's right.
Don't trust your associations. Don't trust what you did in the past. He says, in this season, I want to help somebody. He's saying, trust the original blueprint and watch how things manifest. I'm getting chills just saying that because I want people to understand that what God has for each and every one of you, it's bigger than you.
Always. And he's going to use you as an individual. You don't have to change. I think many times we think we have to change who we are. We got to clean up, or we got to change how we talk, or how we act for God to use us and get us to the dream or the what God has said. But really, you made this way for a reason. You're unique in everything that you do. It's that we buy into these stereotypes and these misconceptions that we have to change. But really, it's not. Jeremiah 1:4, he made you this way for a reason.
Yes.
That's the power. When I work with youth, that's where I come from, is that the strength base. Everything that you need in order to do God's will is already in you. It's already in you. You just have to remove some information that you accumulated that caused you not to be able to hear what he told you to do.
That's good.
Yeah.
So give us your website, because I know someone listening is going to want to have you come, because you are a coach, you are a speaker as well. Give us your website so that people can follow you and get in contact with you and bring you to their city, to their conference, to their country, because you got some nuggets, man.
Thank you, sir. It's robertdavidconsulting.com.
Robert David Consulting,
or I'm on Instagram at Robert David Life Coach, Facebook at Robert David Life Coach, or Robert David, and LinkedIn at Robert David.
Perfect.
Yeah. So not hard to find, brother.
Not hard to find. Give us some closing thoughts before I close it on my end, Brother Robert.
Access is key. You are enough. That's the main thing about that. I always go to Jeremiah 1:5. If you think about it, read back through that, God said he knew you, or he was in relationship before he placed you in your mother. That means that he pulled a portion of himself, a portion of purpose, and put it in your mother. So you have purpose in you. You are a portion of God. And the only thing that has happened to us is that through life experiences and everything that we've been through, the information that we needed, we have not received. So if you want to change your life, change the information and get that authentic relationship that you had when you were sitting in heaven with God, talking before he sent you down here.
Thank you so much for your time. You definitely have an open invitation to come back on After Sunday. I'm telling you, 25 minutes don't do it any justice, because, brother, we can go. Listen, I am Donald Lee, the host of After Sunday, The Lord Still Speaks. Please, please, please subscribe to the Social Maximus YouTube channel, where we drop new episodes weekly, 7 p.m. on Thursday night, Eastern Standard Time. Please subscribe to the Social Maximus. And if you want to be a guest on our show, to get exposure, to talk about your gift, to talk about your purpose, to talk about what God has placed inside of you, please, please, please fill out the information form below as well. And we would love to have you here on the show with us. Click the link in the description. Again, I'm Donald Lee with D. Lee Ministries, a ministry of hope, a ministry of power, a ministry of truth. And before I close, remember this: to love God, love others, but most importantly, love yourself. Until next week, we are out. God bless.
Hey, good people, it's your man Shannon Casino. Thank you for clicking the link and joining us on another episode of After Sunday, brought to you by the Social Maximus Network. Make sure you guys subscribe and click the notification bell. Every week on Thursday night, we'll be bringing you new episodes of After Sunday. We'll have new guests and new topics every week. Make sure you guys tune in. I see you.